Let me start off this time by sharing just a couple of books that I mentioned in the last video. And so I've got three different authors here. I'm a big fan of really all three. This one's by, let's see, David Bach. All right. The Automatic Millionaire. Look, short read. You could get this maybe. I don't know how you do it now at the library, but that's a good book. Uh, Here's another one. Start late, finish rich. Now, we're not, as a high schooler, we're not encouraging you to put it aside, but this is written for people who, wow, 50 years old, and they're like, now what do I do? I mean, there's always hope. There's always hope. But what do you do? All right, so another book. So it's really good. Now, I know you don't own a house yet, but look at this. The Automatic Millionaire Homeowner. Man, it's really just a good book. And then here's a book I mentioned, The Millionaire Next Door. So if you live next door to a millionaire, he talks about what they drive, what they wear. It's just kind of their habits, what they're like. And then and let's understand, you think that people, you can tell by looking at them if they have money or not. That is not the case. uh when I was like 16 years old, I worked in my dad's welding shop, and we had a guy come in that I knew, and very wealthy, multimillionaire. I mean, this was in the 1970s, early 1970s, a lot of money. His wife jet around the world, but he just wasn't into that. He came driving up to the welding shop, needed something welded, driving a piece of junk pickup, had on his old clothes, and when he left, the foreman in the shop said, "Mike, I gave him a really good deal. He didn't have much. I could tell he didn't have. So I gave him a good deal." And I thought to myself, if you only knew. You say, "Well, why is he driving an old beat up truck?" Well, you could drive all your money, or you could enjoy your money. And I mean, his truck was fine. Got him where he needed to go, and he didn't waste his money on car payments. Pretty nice. And anyway, so there's that book. And then here's one, maybe for some of the girls in the class, and you want to read something. Here's one, Susie Orman and the Money Class. And she's written several books, and I just grabbed one. I have several of her books. So all good stuff, all good stuff. Everybody says pretty much the same thing. I mean, personal finance is not rocket science. And and as I've said before, I mean, this workbook that we have, and this is all you need. You don't need 40 other books, but you need to kill some time. Here's some good books. And maybe you can get those digitally. I'm not sure. You may know, and so on. All right. So just some good stuff to read while you're cooped up for a while. All right. All right, let's talk about paying cash for college. This is on page 106 in our workbook. And I know our culture thinks it's okay to take on student debt and all that, and it's not normal. I mean, it's normal, but it doesn't have to be normal. And it's not what we want to call good debt. Listen, if that thing's hanging around 20, 30 years later, is that good debt? I don't think so. I know everybody has, look, everybody thinks I'll pay it off in 3 or 4 years and be done with it. It doesn't always work like that. And not everybody who goes to college finishes college. But guess what? They still have the debt. All right. A lot of people go 2 years and quit, 3 years. So if 1/3 of the people who start college don't finish, they still have that student loan. It doesn't go away. So you got to keep that in mind. All right. Now, you can get financial aid a lot of places. I get that. Um, but also, there's a lot of awards out there, scholarships and grants. So there are things you can do and search for and look for scholarships, and maybe you can get $1,000 scholarship here or something, $500 scholarship, and that'll help reduce your cost. Now, a student loan is not an award because you have to pay for it. All right, so just keep that in mind. And then debt is owing anything to anyone for any reason. That includes a school loan. That's just debt that you don't have to take on. Just remember, no such thing as good debt. The only kind of debt, if you want to call it that, it would be your mortgage. And you don't have one right now. But if you take out a mortgage on a home, an appreciating asset for the most part, then technically you're ahead of the game. All right. All right. Now, the total estimated student debt in our country today, and listen, it changes all the time, but I believe the last figure I saw was about $1.6 trillion in debt. Now, put that in perspective. In the current situation, and Congress just passed a $2.2 trillion bill, those are pretty close. 1.6, 2.2, okay, half a trillion off. I just want you to get an idea how big the student debt issue is in America right now. All right, 1.6 trillion. And millions of people can't afford to make their student loan payment every month. So this is just something we just don't want to get into. We don't want to go there, and we're going to avoid it at all cost. All right, let's go on to section 2 on page 108, and let's start with the end in mind. Once again, we put a financial GPS out there of about $1 million when you're 60, 65 years old. But we'll back it up a little bit. We want to start with the end in mind. We don't want to look at debt, and we certainly don't want to steal from our future. Listen, when you take on debt, you're stealing from your future. Now you think, why would I steal from myself? People do it all the time. We've talked about the student debt crisis. And billions of dollars on page 109 is past due. People are behind. And according to some stats, 2/3 of people with student loans are having a hard time paying their loans back. So if if 3 of you go get a student loan, 2 of you are going to have a hard time paying it back. I mean, does that sound like fun? Why would we do that to ourselves? All right. And then also about 1/3 of the people who take on student debt drop out of college. Wow. It's just something you just don't want to get into. So we want to cash flow our college education. So on page 110, what does that mean? Well, it means we're going to have a plan. All right. So we're going to start now, and we're going to get help from our parents, school counselor along the way, and we're going to do some things and take our college testing and do our applications and all that. Now, the one thing you can do right now is get good grades. I mean, that helps. All right, you may need good grades, and hey, good grades can lead to a scholarship. That's free money or a grant. So let's keep that in mind for the grades. I mean, in a sense, when you go to class, when you do your work, you're working for yourself. All right, so pretty good deal there. All right. So that's like getting paid as a high school student. So you say, well, I don't have a job right now. Oh, but if you get good grades, you may be working right now for yourself. And one day it'll pay off when you get the scholarship. You say, wow, I got a $2,000 scholarship. That means I was making, wow, I was making $1,000 a year and didn't know it or something. So keep that in mind. Now, it's a good idea to narrow your choices down to 6 schools or less. You can't go, I mean, there's hundreds of schools. All right, we'll just narrow the list down. And keep in mind that just because something costs more doesn't mean you get a better quality education. I've already talked about community college. I had some great classes. I took taxation, business law, economics, accounting at the community college. Loved all my professors, loved them all, never had one bad professor. And that's hard to do. It really is. And then you can transfer those into a 4-year college. All right. So I want you to consider doing that, and that's going to help cash flow your education.